engagement, Emmanuel Macron will discuss issues of mutual interest for their countries, particularly on strengthening economic ties, improving partnership on security, and working jointly on education, healthcare, and halting the threats of COVID-19 to the global economy.
Notwithstanding the fact that Nigeria is not one of the francophone countries, as it were, but Nigeria is one of the most important trade partners for France. And of course, we're also allies in the fight against terrorism, especially in the Sahel. And the French have invested a lot in the security sector in Africa. And together with Nigeria, is also part of the intelligence fusion unit. So there's a lot of cooperation with the French, and the French President Macron, is very, very keen to increase even further the cooperation with Nigeria across all sectors: economic, trade, social, and cultural.
President Buhari will thereafter, on Thursday, join other world leaders, heads of international organizations, members of the civil society, and the private sector at this year's Paris Peace Forum to strategize on better governance for a world of peace. He is expected to deliver a keynote address at the event to share the peculiarity of the Nigerian experience with the world and efforts undertaken so far towards achieving sustainable peace.
This is a global forum for discussing global challenges, and so it is important for Mr. President to take part in that, because a lot of those challenges affect Nigeria directly, and Nigeria is also very much engaged in either finding solutions to those or strengthening our capacity in those areas.
The President is also expected to participate at an international partnership forum co-organized by the Nigerian government.
The idea of that is for Nigeria to be able to get across the narrative of a lot of progress and a lot of very good work that the government is doing. And so we have participating in that a large number of different ministries, departments, and agencies of government, as well as the private sector, who will all be here, and representation also from the French government and the French private sector to really engage with potential partners on what Nigeria has to offer: economic, cultural, and social.
At the Paris Peace Forum in particular, President Muhammadu Buhari and the participating world leaders are expected to review about 80 projects designed towards improving global peace and economy, as well as ensuring a more harmonious living by responding to the urgency of climate change, fake news, and cybersecurity. From Paris, France, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Back home, the National Assembly has passed the 2010 Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which was committed to its conference committee following variations in the versions earlier passed. The National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Nkwo reports that the passage this time followed the approval of the committee's report by both chambers.
27 days after the National Assembly suspended plenary for 2022 budget defense, the legislators are back to the chambers. The report of the National Assembly Conference Committee on Electoral Act Amendment Bill was approved in both chambers. The committee resolved that mode of voting and transmission of results shall be in accordance with the procedure determined by the Electoral Commission, and also approved direct primaries for political parties.
This bill is now ready for presidential assent. I'm happy to say that most of what we call citizens' top priorities on the Electoral Act amendment, including the use of technology, has been addressed by this Electoral Act 2021.
Those in favor that the Senate do approve the conference committee report on the Electoral Act number 6, 2010, say aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
The Senate rescinded the decision and recommitted it to the full Senate and agreed with the House.
President Muhammadu Buhari has written to Senate seeking the confirmation of the appointment of Professor Ayo Omotayo as the Director General of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies. Senate has condemned the invasion of Justice Mary Odele's residence on the 29th of October 2021. acknowledged the efforts of the Inspector General of Police for constituting an investigative panel, as it urged him to make public the outcome of the investigation, as moved by Senator Betty Apiafi. A motion by Senator Emmanuel Oke-Jeff also called on the Inspector General of Police to investigate the disappearance of Todu Salem, a Vanguard reporter attached to the National Assembly, while Senate, through a motion by Senator Estefanus Gang, condemned the impeachment of the Speaker of the Plateau State House of Assembly.
Urge Inspector General of Police to make public the outcome of the investigation.
13th day of October 2021, they said Todua went missing.
To call on the Plateau State House of Assembly to be guided by the rule of law and the Constitution in all legislative business.
Senate commiserated with victims of the collapsed 21-story building in Ikoyi, Lagos, and advised building professionals to ensure that only qualified persons are engaged in construction. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Nkwo, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the APC Tripartite Consultative Committee set up by President Muhammadu Buhari met at the presidential villa in Abuja to discuss issues concerning the party. Prominently among issues discussed was that of direct primary elections in states. Senator Adamu Aliero, who spoke to newsmen after the closed-door meeting, says there is no going back on the resolve of members of the National Assembly for direct primary.
We made it very clear that we stand on the legislation passed by the two chambers of the National Assembly, and it is irreversible. We have concluded that the law stands. We are returning the party back to the people that is conducting direct primaries. We believe that that is the only way we can ensure internal democracy within the All Progressive Congress.
Also, Governor Yahya Bello of Kogi State, who spoke to newsmen on behalf of other governors, says members are ready to abide if the bill is assented to by the president.
The topical issue has been resolved between the legislature, the executive, and our party. So it's a good resolution.
Is there any consensus between the governors and the legislature on the issue of direct primaries?
I don't think any governor or any legislature or anybody whatsoever, as far as APC is concerned, is afraid or have any reservation about any mode of primaries, as far as our party is concerned. The only concern is the implication of having only one option. In case an option fails, what happens?
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo chaired the closed-door meeting. Now, to talk more on the passage of the Electoral Act is a public affairs analyst, Jide Ojo, who is right here. Many thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, now, the two chambers of the National Assembly have finally harmonized the Electoral Act bill, allowing INEC to transmit results electronically. What does this signify?
It's an epochal situation or epochal event today, and I am very happy, very, very delighted to receive the news of the passage. I've advocated for this. This is a journey of 2 years that is gradually coming to an end. Yes, we have reached a critical juncture with this passage because the last order now is, in fact, second to the last order, let me put it that way. The second to the last order now is for the president to assent. And I just hope that we will not have a deja vu of what happened in 2018 when the president refused to assent. Ordinarily, there is no cause to fear because the initial gray areas that we raised concern about in civil society and the media was about what the Senate had earlier passed on July 15 before they went on recess, where they were asking that INEC should get the approval of National Communication Commission and National Assembly before it will deploy electronic transmission of results.
Okay.
But public opinion, public pressure was mounted on the Senate, and they recanted, they recommitted that section, and they went in line with what the House of Reps passed. So that was what I thought could be a snag if the bill were to be sent to the president the way it was passed by the Senate on July 15. But like I said, good reason prevailed. They saw why Nigerian public want the infusion of technology or more infusion of technology.
Results. Now, of course, another contending issue is direct primaries. Okay, now it's controversial because we hear that governors are not okay with it. How do you see this playing out at the end of the day?
Well, I don't think the president will withhold assent over issue of the controversies over direct or indirect primaries. Left to me, there should have been a choice of Section 87 of the Extant Electoral Act says that there will be either direct or indirect primary. But the National Assembly, in their wisdom, felt they want to return the party to the people by meaning that they want all members of the political party to participate in the nomination of the candidate. Whether this will make, both direct and indirect primaries have their pluses and minuses. And if in their own wisdom, because of the the likelihood of indirect primaries being manipulated, being subjected to corrupt inducement of delegates and all of that. If they decide to now make it something that every party member will participate in the nomination, that on the surface is good.
Good, okay.
But we have also seen situations where even direct primaries have been corrupted.
Okay, fine. So let's look at this now. If the president assents to this at the end of the day, what would be the effect on subsequent elections?
Positive. So when I said earlier on that this is second to the last, I mean that after this is transmitted to the president and he assents to it, there will still be need to gazette the Electoral Act before it's made public. So those two steps, but the more critical one is the presidential assent.
Okay.
Now, if the president assents to it, all of us who are working in the electoral process need to key into it to educate our different constituencies. The media needs to educate its constituency, the civil society. INEC need to pick it, to look at it in terms of electoral planning. Right. Even the security agencies will look at, is there anything that have been assigned to them? Okay. And the good news about this is that this is not just an amendment of 2010 Electoral Act. This is a brand new Electoral Act.
Thank you so much, Jide Ojo. Of course, you're still going to be here because we'll move on from the Electoral Act now to the Anambra election. The supplementary governorship election in Ihiala local government area of Anambra State has ended. Correspondent Chinyere Fesio-Okoye reports that announcement of final result for Anambra governorship election is about to begin at INEC Secretariat in Awka.
In most of the polling units visited in the early hours of the day in Ihiala town and environs, where the supplementary governorship election took place, the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS functioned effectively as against what played out during the November 6th poll.
My people are performing their civic responsibilities without coercion.
But the energy of my town is high. You can see people want to vote.
People turned out, unlike last week Saturday.
Though there were initial complaints of late arrival of electoral materials in some areas, which forced some of the electorates to go back to other activities. The voters, however, commended the general conduct of the exercise. With all eyes on Ihiala local government supplementary election, the electorate, no doubt, are in high spirit, hoping that their ballots will be protected. Meanwhile, towards the rounding off of the election, NTA news crew deployed for the coverage ran into exchange of gunshots between police and unknown gunmen around Osumohu axis in the council area, where it was gathered that election was not conducted at Lilu, Iseke and Osumohu due to perceived security threats. In Awka, Chinyere Fesio-Okoye, NTA News.
Rest assured that as soon as the results is being announced, we shall rejoin our correspondent in Awka for a live broadcast of the announcement. I still have Jide Ojo right here with me, and now we shall be talking about the Anambra election. Yes, Ihiala happened today. And results would be announced, I'm sure, in few minutes. What's your take of the election in Anambra?
Well, my take is that ultimately, INEC has been able to pull this off. Fair chance has been given to the good people of Ihiala. In 2013, it was the Idemili North and South where election could not hold. And there was a supplementary election because that election had to be declared inconclusive. I know a number of Nigerians have been worried, no, why will INEC need to go and conduct election in Ihiala when a winner, according to them, is already known? Because if out of 21 local government, you have conducted the election successfully in 20, then the winner should be declared. Not so fast. The reason why we are having Ihiala today was because there is a purported 147,000, close to 148,000 registered voters in that place. And if you look at the margin of lead of ABGA, versus the other contestants, particularly PDP, APC, and YPP, you find that the margin of lead is such that if election did not hold in Ihiala, there is a possibility of any of those other candidates saying that if election had held, they will have won.
Okay.
So that 148,000 is why INEC had to go back and conduct. And unfortunately, we still have this unknown government, in spite of every deployment, still not making election to hold in some 3 communities or maybe 3 units. But be that as it may, it's all about majority. And I just
now talking about majority and the fact that election had to hold in Ihiala before the announcement of result, how would this entrench democracy?
It will, because then, you know, democracy is about free choice of the people. If the Ihiala people were to be shut out, there is that tendency for them to feel aggrieved that their voice did not count in the choice of the new governor. Anambra is due for a new governor to be sworn in March 2022. And now the Ihiala people have had a fair chance of participating. The good news is that we heard that the turnout was more impressive than it was last Saturday, and that the atmosphere was generally peaceful, but for the skirmishes with the security agencies by some unknown government. But I think gradually, one thing the presidency has achieved, and I need to commend the president and commander-in-chief of the armed forces for not shifting this poll. If the election has been shifted because of the threat of the separatist agitation of IPOB, then the government will have been perceived as weak, because then they will now say, okay, election can only vote on this and this condition.
Okay, fine.
Which will not have been okay.
Now, talking about conditions on which elections should hold, we have 2 off-cycle elections still coming up, 2022, Ekiti and Osun. What do you think, or how do you see the electoral landscape in Nigeria, of course, as we prepare for 2023?
My sister, the good news is that we now have a new Electoral Act. I'm excited about that, because that will now be the basis upon which INEC will plan for those off-cycle elections that you have just mentioned, Ekiti and Osun in 2022. Because if the president can give this to us, the Electoral Act, the brand new electoral to us as a new Christmas present, I believe that if this is on his table before he arrives from Paris, he will definitely give us as a New Year present. So once he does that, electoral planning will be better.
Okay, and
because now everything should work better in terms of voter, the infusion of technology and other good things that are in that act, which many of us may not know as at this point in time.
All right, thank you so much. We're actually looking forward to good things everywhere in Nigeria and, of course, in our elections. Thank you, Jide Oje, for your time.
Always a pleasure.
All right, so the All Progressives Congress Governors Forum is calling for a review on the proposed Electoral Act by the 9th National Assembly to allow political parties maintain status quo in their pre-election activities. This formed part of highlights at the governors' meeting in Abuja. Salihu Abdullahi Gwanara reports.
At a meeting that looks like a crucial and critical one and lasted more than 2 hours were behind closed doors. Chairman of the APC Governors Forum and Governor of Kebbi State, Abubakar Atiku Bagudu, at the end of the closed-door engagement says the party's nationwide congresses and the leadership role of the Governor Maimala Buni-led caretaker and extraordinary convention planning committee so far were issues that form highlights of the meeting.
We are concerned that once you limit the abilities of the parties to choose options that they so desire, that may even be arguably undemocratic, because nothing stops for one party from adopting one mode or the other. We took cognizance of the COVID challenge, that nobody was ready for COVID, and as a result of COVID, Mr. President signed an executive order which limits public gatherings. So you can imagine if you have a legislation in place that says you can only do something by public gathering.
Governor Bagudu says the APC governors acknowledged the rebuilding efforts the party is currently enjoying for its members and assures that the APC governors are on the same page, working in unity towards conducting a national convention. In Abuja, Salihu Abdullahi Gwanara, NTA News.
Time for our first break. Please stay.
Breakatet Plus is here, and every day is now Christmas. Existing Glow customers will get 400% bonus on every recharge and 100 MB data bonus on first recharge of the month. New customers will get an unmatched 1,000 Naira welcome bonus. To activate, buy a new Glow SIM today or dial *777# for existing Glow customers.
The House of Representatives Committee on Poverty Alleviation and Employment and Committee on Labor and Productivity invite stakeholders to a one-day public hearing on a bill to establish National Social Investment Program Office and Trust Fund. Date 11 November 2021. Time 10 a.m. Venue Room 236, House of Representatives. For further details, contact the clerk on 080-6119-9444. Announcer, Right Honorable Dr. Abdullahi Balarabe Salami, PhD, Chairman.
Are you a diaspora investor seeking lucrative business opportunities in Nigeria? Or are you looking for investors to help start up or expand your business? The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, in collaboration with the Nigeria Diaspora Summit Initiative, presents the 4th Nigeria Diaspora Investment Summit. Date, November 16th and 17th, 2021. Venue, Banquet Hall, Presidential Villa, Abuja, and Zoom webinar. This hybrid summit will bring together diaspora investors seeking investment opportunities and entrepreneurs looking for investors in Nigeria. Special guest of honor, His Excellency Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Chief host, Honorable Abike Dabiri Erewa. For participation and further details, please visit www.ndis.gov.ng. Proudly sponsored by the Bank of Industry, Central Bank of Nigeria, and Zenith Bank.
The National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies, NBIS, invites the general public to the inauguration ceremony of the Center for Tsangaya and General Studies. Chief host, Malam Nasiru El Rufai, Executive Governor of Kaduna State. Host, Malam Adamu, the Honorable Minister of Education. Special guest of honor, Alhaji Mohammed Inwa Yahaya, Executive Governor of Gombe State. Royal Fathers of the Day, Alhaji Dr. Saad Abubakar III, the Sultan of Sokoto. Ambassador Ahmed Nuhu Bamali, the Emir of Zazzau. Alhaji Najib Hussein Adamu, Emir of Kazauri. Date 10th November 2021. Venue, Kilometer 5, NBIS Office, Zaria Kaduna Expressway. Time 10 a.m. Announcer, Professor Mohammed Shafiu Abdullahi, Wakil Makarantan Zazzau, Acting Registrar, National Board for Arabic and Islamic Studies, NBIS.
How to make a perfect bowl of love? A perfect blend of taste that brings every ingredient to life. The fusion of different spices. The unique aroma that rejuvenates your senses. The heartwarming deliciousness. And the satisfaction that comes from every bite, which makes you say, I love my Indomie.
Again,
Let's gather as we celebrate the uniqueness of our cultural diversity, showcasing our creativity and ingenuity. It's the 34th National Festival of Arts and Culture, NAFEST 2021, in the ancient city of Ado-Ekiti, Ekiti State, a land of honor and pride. Theme: celebrating national unity in diversity. Date: Saturday 13th to Saturday 20th November 2021. Highlights will include drama, children poetry performance, essay writing competition, crafts competition, indigenous cuisine, indigenous fabrics and royal apparel, cultural quiz competition, board games. Oh yes, it's the 34th National Festival of Arts and Culture, Ekiti 2021, Ekiti State, Nigeria. Date: 13th to 20th November 2021. We are celebrating our cultural heritage. Otumba Olusegun Runshewe, DG, National Council for Arts and Culture, announcer.
Did you hear the super exciting news?
What have you heard?
GoTV's going super.
Are you serious?
Bringing new channels with super awesome novellas, super duper kid shows,
all right,
and super slamming WWE 24/7. All at the super cool price of 5,500 Naira.
Good.
Get GoTV's brand new package. GoTV Super.
Thank you for staying. Earlier, we told you that President Muhammadu Buhari is in Paris on a special invitation from the French president. Hence, the federal government of Nigeria is organizing the Nigeria International Partnership Forum, NIPF, a high-level event to accompany and strengthen Nigeria's participation in the Paris Peace Forum. The one-day NIPF will bring together the Nigerian and French governments and private sectors in wide-ranging discussions focused on security, regional stability, trade and industrialization. It aims to attract investments to Nigeria and bridge existing infrastructure gaps. Additionally, it will spotlight Nigeria's immense trade and investment opportunities, reset false and distorted narratives about Nigeria, and shed light on the efforts, initiatives and successes achieved in both the public and private sectors as the country charts a trajectory of recovery from the COVID-19-induced global economic downturn. Highlights of the forum will be the participation of His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who will deliver the keynote address. Speakers and panelists at the NIPF include top Nigerian and French government functionaries, ministers and heads of MDAs, as well as Nigerian and French private sector operators are also participating. Others include the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, and French Development Agency, Presidents of the African Development Bank and African Export-Import Bank, the French Minister of Foreign Trade and Economy, and the National Security Advisor, Major General, retired Babagana Mogono. In the face of inequalities in wealth and opportunity worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic, impact investing, an approach that integrates society's social and environmental goals, can no longer be ignored. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo made this observation in a keynote speech delivered virtually at the 4th Impact Investors Foundation annual convening on impact investing. The Vice President says glaring inequalities in wealth and opportunity in the face of poverty, misery and social alienation in any society is asking for trouble, stressing that such a situation is neither sustainable nor wise.
From the relatively random investment landscape that we have for impact investing, we now must move to a more orderly space where, for example, government regulations and incentives are clearly worked out with stakeholders. The point in the spectrum that is occupied by impact investors between the not-for-profit end, ESGs, and the for-profit entities is still essentially virgin. It's still essentially a virgin space. So questions are, how can we incentivize these investments, and how can we properly measure impact in order to assess what fair incentives would be? There's clearly an opportunity here for collaborative thinking between government and the impact investing community and other stakeholders on policy and regulations.
The Impact Investors Foundation was founded by the late Innocent Chukwuma and some other partners in promoting impact investment in Nigeria. And now, talking agriculture, the federal government, in collaboration with states, is considering an Operation Feed Yourself campaign to encourage the establishment of urban farms and small home gardens. This is coming under the auspices of the National Economic Council and the National Council on Nutrition, and it is part of other efforts to address malnutrition and related challenges in the country. State House correspondent Dido Nefade brings us details.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo during a virtual high-level meeting on nutrition attended by the United Nations Deputy Secretary General Amina Mohammed, state governors and representatives of development partners said the plan for Operation Feed Yourself is one of 3 major plans arising from the United Nations-backed food systems dialogues to advance the fight against malnutrition. Laulu Akonde, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity in the Office of the Vice President, speaks more on what the plan is all about.
And one vital thing that came out as proposed by the convener is the issue of Operation Feed Yourself. So we have what state governments will be doing, what federal government will be doing, how we can leverage on the resources of our partners. But also now the Operation Feed Yourself is government wants to encourage Nigerians to have farm gardens in their houses, in their homes, in schools, in public places.
Acknowledging the leadership of Nigeria to the United Nations Agenda 2030 and the African Union Agenda 2063, Amina Mohammed said the solution to many of the challenges associated with malnutrition lie in Nigerians' recent commitment through the Food Systems Summit process. Other plans are providing support to farmers across the country, especially by providing useful weather and soil pattern information that will improve farming yields, and also encouraging state governments to ensure prompt release of budget for nutrition and related activities. In the State House, Jide Onifade, NTA News.
Similarly, the federal government and the Central Bank of Nigeria have launched Brown Revolution aimed at cutting down importation of wheat by 60%. President Muhammadu Buhari launched the program in Kwal, Basa local government area of Plateau State. Musa Babali reports that the president was represented by Plateau State Governor Simon Lalong.
It is a revolution, but a brown one, because that is the color of wheat. The revolution is being supervised by the Central Bank of Nigeria to ensure the country is self-sufficient in the produce. The Central Bank of Nigeria is providing loan facility that will support 150,000 farmers that will cultivate 180,000 hectares in 15 states.
The bank will not rest its horse as we continue to work with our partners, the Lake Chad Research Institute, to expand the frontiers of wheat production in Nigeria to include other areas like the northern Oyo State, Kogi, Kwara, amongst other states.
If that is achieved, the country will be able to save $2 billion she spends annually on importation of wheat.
We have the land cleared, prepared. We have the farmers that are willingly waiting to receive the inputs for this production season.
With the production of wheat, just like any other crops, we know that other allied industries will come up, processing industries, manufacturing industries, and this will also help on unemployment.
The president hopes that before the end of the administration, Nigeria will be free from importation of wheat.
I would like to commend the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwill Emefiele, and his tireless team for their effort, not just in the agri-value chain, but in almost all sectors of the economy, as shown in the recent launch of some transformative initiatives, like the 100 for 100 policy for production and productivity.
Memorandum of understanding was signed between the farmers and millers who will take off the produce for processing. From Kwal, in Basa local government area of Plateau State, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
The next set of reports will come from Lagos, where Michael will guide us. Michael.
Thank you, Mary. The third Mainland Bridge is safe for vehicular movement as no section of the joint is either vibrating or shaking. Federal Controller of Works, Lagos State Olukade Popola, described news making the rounds on the safety of the bridge as rumor. Abolade Salami reports.
Sequel to the unverified news on the social media regarding the safety of the third Mainland Bridge, Federal Controller of Works took NTA News crew on a ride of the entire stretch of the bridge. To allay fears of motorists, the Controller of Works said repairs has been concluded on the bridge from Adekunle section to Adeniji Adele end.
We got the news that was circulating by rumor mongers. I want to tell you that it's a fake news. We are on top of a third Mainland Bridge now. As I'm speaking with you, you can see that it's safe. We have driven to the end and then we came back to this point. There is no place where there is any, where the bridge collapsed or where there is any vibration or is shaking.
The major work still ongoing, he said, is under the water.
They are carrying out the underwater repairs of the piers, the pipe cap, and then the piers itself, including the shaft under the bridge.
The third Mainland Bridge recently had major repairs conducted on it and was open to traffic in February 2021. In Lagos, Abolade Salami, NTA News.
Stakeholders in the mid and downstream oil sector have agreed that there is need to sustain the channel of supply for petrol in the country. This was part of the communique issued by the group after a roundtable discussion with major oil marketers in the country. Kendia DBC has details.
These key players in the mid and downstream subsector of the oil industry are gathered here to discuss some critical issues affecting the smooth distribution of premium motor spirit, also known as petrol. This became necessary to allay any fear of a looming fuel scarcity in the country. After hours of deliberation, the meeting came to some agreement. Reading the communique to newsmen after the closed-door meeting, the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed, says the meeting agreed that marketers and depot owners are to start charging official ex-depot price immediately, just as the NNPC shall revert to Naira-dominated invoice for excess capacity for coastal movement using the I&E rates tentatively.
All marketers are enjoying to continue their operation and put their claim through the authority, while we will process and make payment for their services, so long we can ensure that that has been done properly. There's no worry about that. We'll continue to pay outstanding claims for bridging as well as current claims for bridging.
The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority is expected to engage key players within the first quarter of 2022 on the implementation guidelines of the Petroleum Industry Act 2021. In Lagos, Kendi Adebisi, NTA News.
Time for some messages, and when we return, we head straight to Ibadan, where Kemi Akinwande is standing by.
Where is your brother?
He's not here? He's not here? He's not here? I don't know where he is.
Are you ready for the world's biggest breakdance competition? Enter Globe Battle of the Year Nigeria and win mega millions in prize money. Globe Battle of the Year Nigeria is here.
My schedule can be tight most days, and because I'm always on the go, I need a quick snack or drink to keep me going. And that's why I love my Hollandia yogurt. Every day I choose Hollandia yogurt because it contains protein, calcium, vitamin A, B vitamins, and vitamin H, which my body needs. Hollandia yogurt comes in 2 variants, plain sweetened and strawberry. Wholesome nourishment from your favorite brand.
He's falling sick so frequently, either fever or stomachache. I keep him away from junk food.
He also feeds me apples. She says an apple a day.
If you
want to keep germs away, then also wash your hands regularly with Dettol soap.
Meaning?
Germs and disease spread through the hand also. For this, use Dettol soap. Dettol protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Dettol soap is endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association. Be Dettol sure.
Scary, isn't it? Putting yourself out there. Ignoring the voices telling you you can't. Will you step aside, or will you go for it? After all, what's the worst that could happen? So, keep trying. Don't stop. Believe in yourself and go for it. Aladana, available in many variants to nourish you every step of the way.
Me and you, let's get to Ghana. Hey! Go and jump.
This is Ghana. You've come here to seek for greener pastures. Make it your worthwhile.
Any guinea fowl is Guinea. Guinea fowl has nothing to do with Guinea. It's just the name of the fowl.
So Ghana Jollof, what is it Nigerian beans?
What?
Have we made before?
No. Jasper! Help me!
The 2021 United Nations Climate Change Conference and Nigeria's Climate Change in Focus on NTA Tuesday Live this week. Tuesday Live, every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. Incisive and educative. Join us.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria will look to stay in pole position in Group C when they take on the Lone Stars of Liberia. Can the Lone Stars of Liberia cause major shockwaves in the African World Cup qualifiers? It's Liberia versus Nigeria on the 13th of November in the African FIFA World Cup qualifier, showing on the network service of the NTA and Wazobia TV from 4:30 p.m. with live radio broadcasts on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join us online at sporty.com and NPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by Bet Niger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Welcome to Ibadan. Enhancing Nigeria's security through the experience of Army veterans is important in overcoming current challenges in the country. Chief of Army Staff Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya stated these are the 4th Army Headquarters Veteran Affairs Directorate Seminar held in Ibadan. Yemisi Ajagun's report is here presented.
One of the agendas of the Nigerian Army is to leverage on the experience of retired officers to address the challenge of insecurity in the country. This informed the workshop, which drew participants from across the southwestern part of Nigeria to Bristol.
We believe that the retirees have inherent capacities, having served for this long, and they have also garnered experience while they were in service. And we believe they also interact with members of the community. They are closer to the society and the members of the populace.
The gathering is apt and timely towards enhancing and re-strategizing the security of the country.
The workshop is articulated to follow up on important issues raised in the second quarter edition of the seminar as it relates to the veterans and national security challenges among others.
Your state governor, Sheyi Makinde, represented, commended the Nigerian Army for selfless service and their role in securing the nation. The theme for the workshop is Harnessing Nigerian Army Veterans' Influence to Enhance National Security and Cohesion.
Workers' unions in Kwara State rose from a negotiating council, giving an ultimatum to the state government on the implementation of new minimum wage. The workers say all negotiations must be concluded this December and the new minimum wage fully implemented by January 2022. Olajide Bello has the report.
Kwara State is one of the states yet to fully implement the 2-year-old latest minimum wage to its civil servants. That of levels 1 to 6 was implemented in September, leaving levels 7 and above yet to be attended to. The meeting conclusively gave a deadline to the Kwara State government for the implementation of the minimum wage to the remaining cadres of workers.
The negotiation will soon start, and the commencement must be by December ending of this, by the ending of this year. Hopefully, by the first quarter of the next year, we should be able to sign in the level 7 and above.
State government, represented by the head of service, Susan Modupe Oluwole, pointed out that all labor-related activities to ensure payment of the new minimum wage is receiving priority attention.
We should also look inward and see how can government be helped. How can we, as labor people, how can we help government so that it can be a symbiotic relationship?
The federal government has taken steps towards monitoring the implementation of the minimum wage, aiming blacklisting states that have not implemented it and honoring those that have. Olajide Bello, NTA News.
And that's it from Ibadan. More reports with Inyeri in Abuja after the break.
Of Nigeria will look to stay in pole position in Group C when they take on the Lone Stars of Liberia. Can the Lone Stars of Liberia cause major shockwaves in the African World Cup qualifiers? It's Liberia versus Nigeria on the 13th of November in the African FIFA World Cup qualifier, showing on the network service of the NTA and Wazobia TV from 4:30 p.m. with live radio broadcasts on Cool FM, Wazobia FM and Nigeria Info. You can also join us online at sporty.com and NPFL TV. The FIFA World Cup qualifiers are proudly brought to you by Bet Niger and supported by MTN, Coca-Cola and Dettol, proud sponsors of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Did you hear the super exciting news?
What have you heard?
GoTV's going super.
Are you serious?
Bringing new channels with super awesome novellas, super duper kid shows.
All right.
And super slamming WWE 24/7. All at the super cool price of 5,500 Naira.
Good.
Get GoTV's brand new package. GoTV Super.
History is history, so either you know it or you don't.
My advice to the younger generation is that they should learn from what we have started and what we have left.
I did things that ordinarily I should not have been doing. What that meant was that I was working hard.
Whatever assignment you are given in life, put in your best.
The military years were a disaster.
Smoldering effects of all that is what we are trying to cure.
Glad to have you back. Former Lagos State Governor and All Progressives Congress national leader Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has congratulated the Sultan of Sokoto, Alhaji Muhammad Saad Abubakar, on the 15th anniversary of his ascension to the throne. Tinubu said since the Sultan ascended the throne in November 2006, the royal father has provided purposeful leadership and direction not only to the Sokoto Caliphate, but also to the Islamic Ummah in Nigeria and beyond. He said, as co-chairman of the National Council of Traditional Rulers, the Sultan remains committed to and indeed worked assiduously for peace, unity and stability in Nigeria. He praised the Almighty Allah grants the Sultan many more years and wisdom to continue to lead the Caliphate and Islamic Ummah. Now time for a bit of sports with Badi Adeleye.
Many thanks, Yere. The Super Eagles of Nigeria held their first training session today at the training pitch of the Grand Stade de Tanger, Morocco, ahead of the 2022 FIFA World Cup qualifiers against Liberia and Cape Verde. Head coach Genotro supervised the session alongside his assistant coaches, while Aloy Ago, the team's goalkeeper trainer, drilled the duo of Maduka Okoye and Daniel Akpeye. Currently, 21 players are in camp, with the trio of Victor Osimhen, Odioni Gallo and John Noble being the only absentees. Rivers Angels suffered their second defeat of the CAF Women's Champions League in Egypt after losing 1-0 to South Africa's Mamelodi Sundowns ladies. Playing in their second Group B game on Tuesday, Rivers Angels conceded a 17th-minute goal scored by Sundowns captain Saneo in Clapwell. It is now 2 wins from 2 games for Sundowns, who top the group, while Rivers Angels remain bottom with no points. Back home now, 200 athletes drawn from different parts of the country are set to participate in the first edition of the Inspector General of Police Open Weightlifting Championship, which begins Wednesday at the Package B of the Moshood Abiola National Stadium, Abuja. The competition will feature 10 categories of male and female.
We see sports as a veritable tool for the promotion of national cohesion and peace and stability, which we need at this time. And this is one of the events we have put together. It's open, it's for all weightlifters to come and compete. That is why the federation is on board.
We are trying our possible best to make sure we bring the weightlifting to where it should be.
And finally, the second polo tournament of the year 2021 at the Kefi Polo Ranch has commenced with high intensity. The tournament, which is dedicated to Edo business mogul, late Captain Idahosa Okumbo, in recognition of his humanitarian services, ends on Sunday.
We are introducing a new crop in the entire agenda or calendar or program of tournaments here, and the cup is dedicated to the late, in memory of the late Captain.
That will be all on sports. It's back to your area.
Many thanks, Badi. The death has been announced of Madam Theresa Lily Odu of Kakwagum Village, Boki local government area in Cross River State. She was aged 93. Madam Theresa Odu was an accomplished farmer, a community leader, and an advocate of peace and communality. She will be buried on Saturday, November 13th, 2021 in Kwakwagum, Boki local government area in Cross River State. Madam Theresa Odu is survived by 8 children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, amongst whom is Gabriel Odu, Manager News and Current Affairs, NTA Headquarters, Abuja. Now time for a quick peep at the weather prospect for Wednesday.
Glad to have you join us. For Wednesday morning, the prospect of morning thunderstorms over the coastal belt as well as parts of Kebbi and Niger states. The afternoon and evening holds better prospect of thunderstorms over most parts of the southern region, to include parts of Benue, Nasarawa, Plateau, FCT, Kogi, Kwara, Niger, extending to the southern parts of Kebbi, Kaduna, as well as parts of Taraba and Adamawa. The northern cities are expected to be sunny. I am Theodora Aitum. Thank you for watching.
And just so you know, we will join Oka live for the announcement of the governorship election result. All right, so that's Network News tonight. Many thanks for watching. Please remember that rape is a crime. Do the needful. I'm Yen Ray John. Good night.
And there's the start. And Gavin. Promises to Cheryl. Winds up that left hand.
Archbishop of basketball, goal! He hung on that net like a stalk up a tree.
NTA Sports 24 brings you all sports, all time and all day. Tune in to watch NTA Sports 24 on Star Times Channel 270, Star Sat on Channel 434 and Free TV on Channel 731. NTA Sports 24, where sports thrive.
This week on Executive Discuss.
So why am I here? I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to build people up, for them to be themselves and create a better future. I will never lose hope in Nigeria, despite the challenges of nation building.
This vaccine is safe and it has been certified safe and usable by NAFTA.
Did you get to see the way about the post this? Don't forget to send in your messages.
There's a difference between picking, child, and issue. That is we can do more with less people.
If we have a better way of addressing these issues, taking care of.
Congratulations, you were able to sign Timo Werner from RB Leipzig.
So you take water before your workout.
People have used their phone, using TikTok to do that.
Should I go protest that?
A lot of people don't even have resources.
You can't even hear the sound of a cockroach.
I'm Cecil, and this is the Medley Show on NTA.
This is the network service of the NTA.
COVID-19, that is the black swan of the century, has actually hit the whole world very hard, even the strongest of economies, and Nigeria was not spared. But due to the proactive stance and steps that the president has taken, we've been able to come out quickly. The president has consistently said we must invest in infrastructure. Even as we're investing in human capital, that we must invest in infrastructure, because at the end of the day, that is what will bring about a sustainable economic growth. So the president has given us our directive. He has said you must make sure you pay salaries and pay pensions, but you also make sure that the critical projects of roads, railway, airports, bridges, major infrastructure that are meant to drive the growth of the economy, that we consistently invest in them, even if we have to continue to borrow to do so.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The broadcast media ecosystem is dynamic and requires continuous training for practitioners to perform optimally. NTA TV College Jos invites relevant officers to the following specially packaged training programs: Transmitter Operation and Maintenance, date 1st November to 5th November 2021, 1 week. Photojournalism and Photography, date 8th November to 26th November 2021, 3 weeks. Advanced Broadcast Accounting and Auditing, date 22nd November to...
Take a breath anytime you want. It's not an exam. It's almost done.
I'm so done with this.
You can just relax.
It's an example. A very tough one.
Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stover. For some time now, global leaders have been meeting to push for ambitious goals aimed at slashing emissions by 78% by the year 2035 and achieve net zero by 2050. Tonight, Tuesday Live, we'll look at issues surrounding the World Summit, especially reforms on environmentally damaging activities and recalibrating financial flow to accelerate economic transition and achieve climate justice. But before we go into tonight's discussion, let's get to see this report put together by our correspondent in Scotland, Onengie Fineface.
In Paris, the world came together with an understanding and an agreement to work towards reducing climate change and its impact on the world. That was in the form of the Paris Agreement. But here in Glasgow, the world is taking new steps this time around to walk the talk of the Paris Agreement. World leaders have had the opportunity to make concrete commitments to actualizing the Paris Agreement. For Africa and other developing countries of the world, one major area of concern and negotiation in Glasgow is the issue of climate financing. The developed world has made a pledge of $1 billion yearly support to developing countries, but that pledge has not been redeemed. And Glasgow gives these countries the opportunity to make a case for the redemption of that pledge.
What we are telling them is not just enough you promise. We want to see an action timeline the releases so that we can mitigate and we can adapt to our new challenges.
But we have the opportunity and we have the duty to make this summit the moment when humanity finally began, and I stress began, to defuse that bomb, and to make this the moment when we began irrefutably to turn the tide and to begin the fight back against climate change.
Nigeria also has an ambition of reducing its carbon emissions by 2060 in line with its nationally determined contribution to the Paris Agreement. President Muhammadu Buhari made the case at the Leaders Summit, which opened proceedings here in Glasgow. But beyond the conference of leaders, there has been a series of meetings and negotiations and side events where NGOs, individuals, and various countries have been showcasing their capacities and where they need support as far as mitigating climate change and building adaptation, strength, and capacity is concerned.
I would like to state that attaining national and global climate change goals will require adequate and sustained technical and financial support to developing countries. In Nigeria, in the area of energy access, Nigeria's commitment to a just transition is reflected in our ambitious energy compact, which includes the government's flagship project to electrify 5 million households and 25 million people using decentralized solar energy solutions. This is a major step towards closing our energy access deficit by 2030.
Youth are not left behind. We've had Nigerian youth also here in Glasgow joining the Global Youth Force for climate action.
Girls should learn, they should build their capacity and gain more knowledge. They should learn more about this issue. I think the very first most important point is learning about the issue and finding that when you learn about the issue, you then be able to see how you can play a role, neither solving the issue or contributing to the issue.
From Red Plus to New Map to Gender Action Plan, Nigeria has shown its commitment in different ways at COP26. Some states too had representatives come to showcase what they can do and the kind of support they need to help them meet up their climate adaptation plans.
A COP26 that is taking place right here in Glasgow, Scotland, as an opportunity for Kano State to get those investments down to our state and also to network with a lot of partners, with a lot of stakeholders in the area of environment.
So far, conversations are still on, negotiations are still on, and commitments are still being made by various parties to the Paris Agreement. And of course, at the end of this whole conference, the world is expecting to see action and more action away from the rhetoric of the past towards achieving a sustainable future, bearing in mind the overall target of net zero carbon emission by 2050. From Glasgow, Scotland, Onengiye Fineface.
All right, and that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests to you. I'd like to welcome to this program Dr. John Osonwa. He's an expert and analyst on climate change, environment, and renewable energy. Dr. Osonwa, thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
We're also joined tonight by Dr. Yahya Saleh Ibrahim. He's Director, Center for Energy and Environmental Strategy Research, Kaduna State University. He joins us from our Kaduna Network Center. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Cyril, and thank you all.
Okay. Let me also welcome to this program Professor Emmanuel Ladipo. He's a climatologist and also a negotiator for Nigeria at previous UN climate summits. He joins us from Lagos via Zoom. Thanks for being here with us, Professor.
Good evening, Nigerians, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, thank you. And let me also welcome tonight to this program Dr. Nimo Bassi. He's of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, and he joins us from Scotland via Zoom. Dr. Bassi, thanks for being with us on NTA Tuesday Live.
Thank you for inviting me.
Right, thank you very much. And well, as we always do on this program, we acquaint you with the procedure at an appropriate time. You'll get to know when it's time. You can get to be part of the discussion in the studio. The phone numbers will be online for you to take advantage of. And as we always say, when that time comes and you get through to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set so we can avoid the hurlback or the echo, if you like. But we'll remind you about this when we get to that stage, when the phone lines will be open. For now, let's begin by talking to our guests who are here, and let's put things in true perspective. Tonight, it's all about climate change. And so let me ask Dr. Osonwa, who is right here, in simple terms, what is climate change, to set the tone properly?
Yes, thank you very much. In lay terms, climate change simply means that the climate that we are used to is changing, and usually for the worse. When we talk about climate change, we're looking at a number of issues. Global warming is one factor. We're looking at severe weather events. We're looking at drought. We're looking at desertification. We're looking at forest fires. We're looking at crop failures. So many issues, flooding included also. So climate change triggers a lot of consequences. Climate change is also what we call a threat multiplier, in the sense that whatever you have becomes more severe and more frequent in terms of weather. So that is what we mean by climate change. Our climate is changing, and it is changing in the wrong direction, mostly because of human activity.
Okay, so as we go on, we'll seek to find out how serious the situation is, as to compel a meeting of world leaders to try to chart a way forward. But let's go to Kaduna Network Center and talk to Dr. Yahya Saleh Ibrahim. Dr. Ibrahim, thank you for joining us once again. And well, we have put climate change in that very simple term that we all understand. But now, how bad is this situation that demands that world leaders gather in Scotland to talk about it? There have been such conferences in the past. And why is this so significant for countries such as Nigeria, where people would tell you, well, we can't see these things. People really want to see palpable things before they believe in them.
Well, thank you very much, Cyril. It's very important for us to know that climate change is real, and whosoever is doubting it should look around his environment and can be able to testify that climate is really changing. You remember you have quite a number of species of trees in your own environment which your grandmother or your mother keep using as medicinal herbs for you. Now they disappeared. Go back to your village, you cease to see them. There are certain species of trees and plants that are being used for domestic consumption. Go back to your village, go back to your grandmother's backyard, they cease to be there. Now, in the northern part of the country, we are used to seeing vultures all over, and quite a number of us are aware of the popular adage that vulture has a culture, and this vulture culture is something that we need to learn. Now come back to Kaduna where I am today, check whether you can see a single vulture flying in the sky. This is part of it. We used to have vistos, birds flying from Canada down to Jigawa State every season. At about the coming up of rainfall, you will see those birds flying with their rings, coded from America and Canada, coming down to Jigawa, and after barely a month, at about this setting in of rainfall, these flies will fly back. Are we seeing them now? Just go back to see the different species of fishes that we have in our rivers, be it from Borno State, the popular place where we have quite a number of sweet and tasty fish. Do we still have them in abundance the way we used to have them, to export them to places? Do we still have them? That will also testify to you that we are really facing a climate change. So also try as much as possible to see where you used to know there is a forest. For me, I can be able to tell you that from from Bauchi State down to Kano State, down to Kaduna State, up to Niger State, it used to be a forest. I believe Cyril is very much aware of that because he's from Niger State. You can be able to testify that this forest is gone, unless if you move down to Binungwari, you cease to see the forest existing. And we used to see the migration of elephants moving from Yankari Game Reserve through the forest in Kano State, down to the forest in Kaduna State. It moved and crisscrossed to the southern part of Kaduna State, down to Niger State, back to Shiroro, from Shiroro back again through the forest of the southern part and back to Bauchi. Do we still see this elephant moving? That shows to you that really the climate is changing. This perspective is just in Nigeria, just like you can crisscross and begin to summarize all these things, all these natural faunas and floras that are actually defying all census to now be remembered. Quite a number of our generation cannot remember. Hana, talk less of 16 species of monkeys that can be able to stop everybody from passing from one village to village. You can't even see them. The smaller species are disappearing. I can mention quite a number of species that we keep living with that today cease to exist in the environment. This is the reason why we need to come to the rescue of our planet. We need to come to the rescue of these special species that are actually, disappearing every minute, every second, and we cease to see them. And there's intertwining relationship between natural habitat, natural biodiversity, and the existence, survival, thinking, education, and even absorption of whatever you are learning in the environment and the environment itself. By the time you have a dry school, a school, put in place where there are no trees, no water, be rest assured, check the students that are residing in a school where all these things exist and compare the ability to absorb, not to have the natural genius, to have the natural ability to be able to have the capacity to remember, but just to remember. If you have somebody that is in a school that is green, is having water around it, compared with the person that is in a school that is dry, deserted, and then get the level of absorption, you will see that it is zero. Take your small child to a place where there's water and then there's grasses. Check, do this test for yourself. You will see whether the child is going to the water or is going to the grass. Where there's no water, there's grass, see where the child is going to go. If you're in a dry place, he's definitely going to that natural area where this thing exists.
Very interesting links, and I suppose we'll get more of this and look at so many reasons why this is happening across. And Dr. Somwa here has said to a large extent the activities of humans, man is doing a lot to destroy the natural habitat and destroy everything, the environment. But let's go on to Professor Emmanuel Ladipo, who joins us via Zoom from Lagos. He's a climatologist. And again, this is taking it to the simple level, Prof. Just tell us, what are these things? Now we've heard that plants, animal life, they're disappearing, and we've heard also that some of these things are happening as a result of the activities of man. But give us the causes of this. Apart from man, what else? Are these things beyond the control of man? What are the other factors that are not man's issue?
Thank you very much. I think good evening again. It's been really wonderful to try to put a very complex issue into simple language that people can understand. And one of the things maybe we need to do is to accept that at the beginning, what we are talking about now is what I personally love to call climate crisis. That is a crisis in a system that normally changes from time to time on its own. What is being accentuated is being exaggerated by human activities. I call it crisis because if you, in Abuja today, I came into Abuja today and it rained so heavily in some parts of Abuja, not in every part. And this is November 9. On the average, by this time of the year, if it will rain at all, one does not expect a heavy rainfall to occur at this time. This is the type of thing we are talking about when we talk about extreme events. If people, for instance, of those who maybe want to harvest beans and all the rest, are caught in this type of rainfall today, they may have their crops destroyed because this is not the time you expect this type of heavy rainfall. So what we are witnessing is that within the normal system of the climate itself, which constitutes a major component of our existence, that changes over long periods of time to time, from very cold to very warm conditions, we are now having a rapid motion.
Okay. Temporarily, we lost connection there, but we'll get back to Professor Ladipo as soon as the connection clears up there. Let's quickly go over to Scotland and join Dr. Bassi. Right. COP26, this conference is taking place in Scotland, and you're right there. First, it is assumed that most of the countries that are responsible for huge carbon emissions, in other words, the big emitters and polluters, are in the industrialized world, in the West. And that Africa itself, although activities in Africa, affect the climate, but to a very small level. But is it significant that the biggest emitters were not physically represented at this conference that is taking place in Scotland?
Well, thank you for that question. Indeed, Africa contributes very little, has contributed historically very little amount of greenhouse gases to the atmosphere. This is true. It's estimated that Africa has contributed historically and currently about 2 to 3% of the total global greenhouse emission. And so when it comes to who is responsible for the crisis, certainly the finger cannot be pointed to Africa, but the finger must be pointed to the big polluting countries, as you mentioned, and in fact, not just the big countries, the big corporations. The burning of fossil fuel is a major source of greenhouse gases that is driving global warming. And at this conference in Scotland, the fossil fuel industry has about 509 delegates. This is more than the delegations of many vulnerable poor countries put together. So when you have that kind of a barbaric presence of those who ought to be sanctioned for the crisis in the negotiation process, they're engaging in every aspect of the negotiation, including the financial aspect, including issues of the actions to reduce emissions, you're going to find an elevation of presentation of false solutions all over the place. And this is one of the challenges that we're facing. Now, in terms of the big polluters not being present, physically present, I don't really think that we need the presidents of these nations to be physically present. They actually hinder the process, the progress of negotiations. Now, every negotiation takes place in 2 weeks. Every one of the COPs. The first week for the technocrats, those who really know the science to debate and negotiate. The second week, the politicians come and they play politics on climate change. And so when you have these political leaders come to the COP, they simply often subvert the whole process. This happened in Copenhagen in 2009. It drove the process in almost all the COPs. And in this particular COP, the United States returned to the COP after Donald Trump, the former president, had pulled out. To me, it doesn't make difference whether they are there or not, because they are the force behind the crisis that we're having. And so, as I said, the important thing is that the nations are on the table. But what are they debating? That is what we should be worried about.
Right. Okay. Good enough. We'll talk about that. And some people see it as an avenue for financial benefits. We'll also look at that. But Dr. Somwa, that's one angle of it as well. Yes. That is mostly for the financial benefits. And if the big polluters say, okay, we're doing this, we're going to commit to getting countries to cut back on emissions, and this is what they get. Yes. And so even the small countries who are not big polluters, they go and get part of it. Yes. And so they can think, oh, well, it's all right.
Yeah, I want to stress this point. See, historically, as my brother stated, the contribution of Africa to global climate change is minimal. It's less than 5%. However, we are going to bear the brunt of what is happening now and what is about to happen. And that is because Africa is in a unique position. We have a lot of issues that would militate in the direction of severe harm, severe suffering from climate change. And what are some of the issues? The first one is the position of Africa on the map. We are smack in the middle of the equator, where the temperature is the highest for most of the year. Then you look at the map of Africa, you see that more than half is desert. Anything beyond Niger is mostly desert with pockets of habitation here and there. So that also adds to the burden that we have. Then you look at the institutional mechanisms to deal with climate change in terms of technology, in terms of knowledge, in terms of financial capacity, in terms of strong political institutions that can leverage action. We are lacking in a lot of these things. So that is why we are very worried, because now you have a situation, if you look at the northern part of Africa, we are facing a climate crisis, climate refugeeism. People are now beginning to migrate southward in search of grass, in search of water, in search of livelihoods. Lake Chad has dried up by more than 90% as we speak in the past 20 years, largely because of climate change and mismanagement of the water system. 30 million people have been displaced. People who used to rely on that water source for their livelihood, they are migrating southward. So climate change in Africa is a national security issue, as we are in Nigeria now. It's a food security issue, and it also creates some health challenges for us. So that's why we need to take it seriously. And that's why I applaud Mr. President, our president, for being present, submitting our NDCs, signing some of these commitments and agreements. That is a step in the right direction. What we now need is to bridge the gap we have between ambition and action. And that's what I want to talk about next.
Okay. All right. We'll come to that. You bridge the gap between ambition
and action.
Yes. That we haven't seen much of, even from the big countries who have pledged support. Dr. Saleh Ibrahim, I want us to look at this from, we have seen, like the last speaker said, it's a security issue, it's a food security issue. and of course, an economic issue for countries such as Nigeria. Now, there will be a fight over wherever is seen as still retaining some rich lands for agriculture, for other things as well. And we're beginning to see the fight over land resources, particularly in Nigeria. Now, in a situation like this, and knowing that Nigeria's biggest contribution to carbon emissions is through activities in the oil-producing areas, how can this conference be beneficial to this country, and what are those things that we need to push forward for? Because if you just say cut back, you do not have the advantage of being developed to the extent where you have immediate substitutes.
Well, thank you very much. That is basically the challenge we are facing. As it is, our land is being degraded, and if you listen very well to the submission of the President of Nigeria, and what earned him, the applause from other nations is his ability to present to the world that we are trying to, regenerate the land that are degraded. That means that we are trying to regenerate them back to become viable for agricultural production, because that's our strength. Our biggest strength is to be able to get land that we can be able to make it productive. As it is today, our forest is fast, going, and by the time the forest is going, be rest assured that the soil is also, getting bad. And the only way we can do, just like the FAO director mentioned at this conference, 26th conference at Glasgow, he really mentioned that agriculture needs to be revitalized, and all the degraded lands need to be recovered. They need to be, rejected so that they can be able to serve as another source that can be converted to viable agriculture. And I think that's the position of Nigeria. The first thing to do is that concentration. But I agree also with the speaker whom we are discussing this topic with, that our ambition should be matched with a vision. And if the vision is absent, then the ambition is fruitless. And that's why I was at Madrid last year. I attended. We have the highest contingent that attended the conference as usual. And I believe this year also, or this conference also, Nigeria is going to score #1 at the highest contingent, but with less and less presentation, less and less vision, less and less actionable, framework that we will come back home to do. For instance, I will simply tell you that hardly is there any coordinated effort between the NGOs who are going down to the villages to do one or two things from, by the time they, get some donation from the donor agencies. Whether they did the activity, whether the activity is good or not, nobody is coordinating them. Nobody is getting the result. Whether the youth and women are actually benefiting from those monies they are getting for the sake of climate change, nobody cares. Whether the state is doing, none of the state agencies, NEMA for instance, NASDA, and then all the other agencies that you can take, Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Water Resources, there's no convergence line. Everybody is on his own. Everybody is independent. And climate change fight is an integrated fight, one fortifying the other. By the time we did not have that, then it is only going to be a kind of holiday. Going to have a holiday and come back and then prepare again to go back for another holiday. And we're spending money with the highest contingent with no result to show. What I'm hoping is we actually have this mission. Let the vision be loud. Let Ministry of Environment be at the forefront to coordinate Ministry of Water Resources, to coordinate Ministry of Agriculture, to coordinate all the other platforms that can supply them with all the needed information like NASDA. The remote sensing data are needed. The water resources data are also by NIMET are needed. These will form the ancillary data that we can be able to make assessment, make presentation, and be able to now know where we are, where we're going to be, and how we're going to be there. Yes, we don't have the technology, we do not have. But as usual, we have the brain that can be able to use the smaller technologies that we have to be able to achieve what we have. I want to cite example. I am the focal person of UNDP JAVE Sustainable Fuel Wood project in Kaduna State. We were able to conscientize the local youths and women to be able to now know that you can plant trees, you can make life out of planting trees. When you plant eucalyptus, for instance, eucalyptus has sprouting capability of over 10 times. You can harvest it, it will sprout, harvest it the second time up to 10 times. And you can cut one, jump one, cut one, jump one, the forest will remain standing, and they will also serve as carbon sequesters, or they may serve as windbreakers, at the same time serve as aesthetic for the environment and also fix the nutrient in the environment. But is the government ready to take from where we stop, from the UNDP JEP, because their own is smaller amount to be able to conscientize the youth, to make life out of forests, and then to also make life out of this forest plantation. The second one is, people may not like to hear it, but I have to say it. We don't want the grazing system to really happen. Yes, the roaming about of the herds of cow is the most disastrous. It's the most simplest solution, is the mitigation measures. By the time they move around, they are not staying in one place to ensure that the methane concentration is there to pollute the environment. They move, and as they move, they only trap on the what you call the faunas or the flowers they are actually coming across. But if you are going to sedentarize them and keep them into one place, and then make a ruga program for them, then be rest assured you can be able to generate power from the dung. 4,900 herds of cow can be able to generate 3 megawatts of light. If that is what we are aiming at, then sedentarization is the best policy. And agriculture will also be fortified. Food sufficiency and food security will be assured. Why? Because by the time you remove the methane, you still have the fertilizer from the dung, and you don't need chemical fertilizer to farm what you eat. You farm what you eat and even sell. So that's exactly what Nigerians need to understand. We always put politics into what will benefit all of us. We cry just because we are having primordial sentiment that cannot help us. Let us think. I was in Hague at the border of Germany. I have seen 8 farmers having 4,900 herds of cow, generating 3 megawatts of light from the animal dung through a digester, with small quantity of the maize they produce for fermentation to take place to have the methane gas that they can be able to generate the power. This is the way to go. You can never grow with a linear kind of power generation, hydro. No way. And those who are prophesizing that solar can be the best solution, I am telling you, solar is number 3 solution, but biomethane is number 2 solution to power generation and climate change mitigation measures, if at all the government is.
We'll come back to you because you started an interesting angle as talking about energy, and we'll return to you in just a moment. You're the energy and environmental strategy expert here. We'll come back to you on that because it's extremely important. Nigeria's energy needs. This is one area that we're having huge challenges with. But let's go over to Dr. Bassi in Scotland. We'll do this while we try to fix links back with Professor Ladipo. But Dr. Bassi, hello, Dr. Bassi, are you still with us? Right. Okay, so, all right. Okay, Dr. Bassi, one of Nigeria's biggest contribution to these pollutants stems from the activities in the oil sector, hydrocarbons. And the world has said, look, move away from fossil fuels. for now, Nigeria does not have a ready alternative to the fossil fuels. Yes, this is a gas country. Yes, people have talked about nuclear. Nuclear, we understand, is not renewable. So in the absence of an immediate alternative to fossil fuels, so many things that you need to develop are not on ground. Could we be in an undue rush to cut back here when we have not even attained that level that the industrialized worlds are recommending?
Well, you're asking me a question that I guess maybe can be traced back to essays written recently by both the vice president and the president in some foreign newspapers and magazines. The argument that we haven't attained a certain level of provision of certain infrastructure and certain levels of development, therefore cannot leave the dirty form of energy production. It actually sounds politically correct, because we could say, well, the global north use this same they use coal, they use petroleum to get to where they are. Why can't we use the same to get to where they are or to where we want to be? But the question we need to ask ourselves is 60 years of oil extraction. Where has that taken us? And what is the guarantee that the next 10 years, the next 20 years of continuing on that path will provide what we need? So the issue is not about time. It's not about the fact that we need more time to utilize that resource to produce electricity, to produce goods and to generate revenue. We have generated revenue for 63 years from crude oil and gas. We've got all the time that we needed to provide electricity for Nigerians across board. Now, we're having counter signals from those at the helms of power. At one hand, they say we must continue with dirty energy, must continue with this fossil fuel generated power. At the other hand, they will say, well, we're going to provide this amount of households with solar powered electricity. We need to have very clear direction where we want to go when it comes to these issues. And one of the things that we should do as a nation, I heard the president mentioning they're going to stop illegal gas flaring. Well, gas flaring has been illegal since 1984. So why do we still have gas flaring? Releasing a lot of methane, nitrogen oxide, sulfur oxide, all the things that add up to pollute the environment, to create problems, and to also send down acid rain on poor community people. We have it right now in the area of Port Harcourt. For 5 years now, black soot, carpeting everything. You open your windows or your sitting room, everywhere will turn black because of soot. Your cars outside, if you clean your nostrils, if you sneeze, everything comes out black. Now that soot is spreading. It's not being noticed in Akwa Ibom State. It's being noticed in Yenagoa and Bayelsa State. And all those are not just because they're not happening accidentally. It's because of actions and inaction pertaining to our fossil fuel resources. And we need to clearly know where we want to go with this. And I believe that going from what the president said, that so many households, millions of households be powered with solar energy, that is where we should invest our resources in. Gas is not a bridge resource. It's not. Because gas is serving methane, is very disruptive, more than carbon dioxide, just that it kind of wears away in the atmosphere faster in a shorter period of time. Then all the gas pipelines tend to leak methane. So we are releasing these climate harming substance gases into the atmosphere through the gas pipelines. And of course, we're still having oil spills at very high levels. Let me just mention now, there's a particular well fire that has been burning since May 2020. Over 1 year now at the rural one well off the coast of Ondo State. It's still burning. And yesterday, while here, I got a report that another oil well has burst, is spewing crude oil in Bayelsa into the atmosphere for a whole week non-stop. When we release these volatile elements to the atmosphere, we are on our own compounding the climate problem. And now we'll be looking for help from the global north for resources. When you go to negotiations and your major ambition is to attract resources, you can't have a solid negotiation because you have to lay back so as to attract attention from the people that you're supposed to be negotiating with from very principled position. We should separate seeking funding and projects from discussing about how to tackle global warming.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much. Well, we have a number of reports to complement this discussion. We'll be taking the very first of them now. This one is from Lagos by Adiola Komiakiri.
Climate change over the years has been a universal issue, with the effect taking its toll on nations. This is evident in increased temperature, fire outbreaks, variable rainfall, rising sea levels and flooding. Although Africa emits less than 7% of global emissions, it is worst hit by the effects of climate change. Reports by the IPCC show that coastal communities are most vulnerable to climate change. Lagos State, for instance, with a vast coastline, is already battling rising sea levels, compounded by the downside of urban planning that aggravates coastal flooding and erosion.
And this is because of, obviously, a consequence of global warming and climate change. And while there's so much little thing that can be done, since it is a global phenomenon, it's important that at Lagos State at least optimizes, enhances its flooding or its flooding forecast and response system, improved drainage systems. But ultimately, it's about that transformation or transition to a green economy.
Targets of the Glasgow Summit, tagged Conference of the Parties, COP26, include climate finance, net zero target by mid-century, building resilient cities and green economy.
Nigeria has developed a detailed energy transition plan and roadmap based on data and evidence.
How can Lagos, with its rapidly growing population, gridlocks, industrial emissions, and extensive shoreline, with vulnerable communities and investments, explore the summit for adaptation measures and transition into a greener economy?
Lagos, as a state and as a city, can only be involved in working towards these global goals if Lagos does so from the understanding of its peculiarity as a low-lying littoral body, which is largely a coastal city with 30% land and 70% water.
With the myriad of climate change challenges in Lagos, experts say a clearer and more comprehensive policy and framework geared towards building resilience and adaptive capacity is required. To achieve this and a net zero economy, the insist involves high-level partnership between the government, private sector, and developed nations through climate funding.
All right. Well, that report shows us the peculiarities of some of those areas that are, of course, Lagos is a good example of what's happening in Nigeria. But then, you also an expert in renewable energy.
Yes.
And one of the biggest challenges Nigeria has is in the provision of energy. You had the contributions of Dr. Bassi. We're driven to a large extent by fossil fuels. So renewable and cleaner energies, if we agree that nuclear is not renewable, what are the options for Nigeria that is struggling with a huge deficit in the area of energy?
Well, the world clearly is moving to renewable and we're being left behind. However, because we're so dependent on oil and gas, over 80% of our foreign revenue is coming from that sector. What I propose is that we transition away from gas and move into solar. See, on a given day, the amount of solar energy that hits the earth is enough to power the whole world for 1 year, just 1 day of solar energy. And Nigeria happens to be in a geographical location where we have abundant of solar radiation that can be harnessed. So that is how the world is moving. A lot of these countries have embarked on large-scale solar projects to complement what they are doing in terms of energy provision. But what we can do in Nigeria, we really have a wonderful opportunity with our gas utilization. Our gas right now is a menace. It's a climate change menace, as Dr. Bassi said. It's spewing all kinds of things, greenhouse gases. It's an environmental menace because we are now suffering the effects right here in Nigeria. It's an economic menace because we're losing, at a minimum, $1 billion every year. Every year, we are flaring over 180 billion cubic feet of gas. Just flaring is just burning it away. That gas can be harnessed to provide electricity for Nigeria, can be harnessed to produce fertilizer with a little bit of modification. We can use it. Okay, now we're having the cooking gas problem in Nigeria. Cooking gas prices have doubled in the last 6 months. The gas can be used to address the cooking gas issue we're having in Nigeria. But more importantly, we can also use it to transition. We're already doing some transition. Some vehicles are transitioning to gas. So what we now have as a menace can actually be a blessing. We can generate more revenue, up to $2 billion from what we are flaring. We can solve our electricity problem. We can use it for fertilizer, for farming. We can use it as cooking gas. So that is a transition mechanism. But we need to look at more hydro. Hydro is clean, and we have a lot of water resources that can be harnessed. Now technology has advanced to the point where you can even do
well, it's a good thing you talked about
hydro.
Yeah, you talked exactly. You talked about hydro.
Yes.
Again, if we begin to look at the damage that huge hydro dams cause the environment, including the economic activities of inhabitants of those areas who lose their their source of livelihoods.
It depends.
How do you balance
depends
this?
on how it is managed. If you plan a hydro dam properly, you will take cognizance of what is happening. You do an environmental impact assessment, you do a social assessment, you now come up with an optimal project, infrastructure that can provide clean energy for many, many years. The problem sometimes is that from the time we conceive these things, it takes 20 years to get to execution. By then, the demographics has changed, the landscape and the population size has also changed. So it doesn't respond to the present need of the have now developed a vision plan, what they call beyond oil. They are looking, Dubai is doing that, Saudi Arabia is doing that, Norway has been doing that for many, many years. People are moving away from oil. The ideal future is what Elon Musk has envisioned. This where you have, even your roofing tiles are solar enabled. They harness the energy, you store it in a power bank in your house, you can charge your vehicle, your electric vehicle, in the morning you drive off. Zero emission world. That's what the world is heading, and we need to key in now.
Okay, we'll explore that further. I wonder if we have Professor Ladipo back on. Okay, Professor Ladipo, you can hear me now. Just we have gone to the area of energy, clean energy, and how Nigeria can key into it. And I'm looking at the infrastructure. Does Nigeria have the infrastructure to, within a reasonable period, phase out completely its use of fossil fuels, go for more, for cleaner energy and renewable energy?
Thank you. I think the challenge is not whether we have the infrastructure. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. Yes. The challenge is not whether we have the infrastructure or not. The challenge is the determination, the focus that we must have it. If we claim that we don't have, we will never have. But I believe that if we are determined with what we have on the ground in the energy transition program, in the national policy on climate change, in the national program on climate change, in the national policy on environment, if all this can be put together in an integrated manner with all the other sectoral plans that have been developed for Nigeria's nationally determined contribution, then the issue of what infrastructure do we need to be able to actualize this, to make them to drive us towards the net zero emission policy that the whole world is looking at. I think that's what is important. We may not have the infrastructure, but we can have the infrastructure if we are determined to do it. And I think one of the best ways is what people have been talking about now. There's no way we can continue to say we depend on fossil fuel and we cannot really let our economy go without the fossil fuel. The world is moving away, whether we like it or not. A time will come that people will not even need the fossil fuel anymore. What do? Do we have to wait till that time? No. The answer is let's try to see that we can move forward in a very sustainable manner, not really looking at rapid change. Nobody is asking us to cut fossil fuel within 2 or 3 years and then no, but start a process that will make the transition of moving from fossil fuel within the next 20, 30 years to other means of energy that can help the nation to move its economy forward. Develop in a way and manner that is sustainable, in which case we will be contributing to what the world expects Nigeria, a big nation in Africa, to contribute to the global effort to stabilize climate, and at the same time, we will be developing our economy to move in the right path, that we will be able to compete effectively. I think that's what we are lacking in Nigeria. We are not able to compete. Even when we are doing the fossil fuel, we are not refining, we are not doing anything, so we are not competing. So we have to determine what we need, and we have to get it very clear by developing the infrastructure. Look at what America has done. It passed a bill for 1.7 trillion for infrastructure development. Nigeria needs something like that. What do we need? What type of infrastructure do we need? And how do we get it moving? So I think we can do it, and we need to do it. Otherwise, we'll be left behind. And when the time comes when nobody's using our fossil fuel, then what do we go to? I want to sound the issue of the dams, the hydro dams. They are renewable, yes, but they are extremely vulnerable to climate change as well, in the sense that if the rainfall is either too extreme or is completely reduced, your hydropower capacity can be completely knocked out. So it is also an area that we have to look at, and if we are doing Mambila Plateau and Nedrest, we have to really build the factor of the climatic variability into it so that we do not have a dam that cannot produce what we are looking for. I think this is my contribution for now.
All right, thank you very, very much, Prof. We also have another report. This one is from Kano, and it's by Aminu Umar.
The issue of global warming is no more a matter of doubt. Its evidence is everywhere. In this part of the country, flooding, unpredictable rain pattern, and other climatic conditions are enough to clear the doubt. Indiscriminate felling of trees, urbanization, population and industrial growth, which cause massive expansion, are the key challenges that ignite emissions of carbon to the atmosphere. Kano, as the state with highest population in the country, is characterized by this. In the city alone, there are more than 600,000 tricycles that ply the city's roads, apart from other vehicles and industries that emit to atmosphere. According to a climate scientist, there is need for plans that will promote green habit for low emission, which is not without cost.
So if we are really moving towards this direction, it means that from now on, the new businesses that will be striving will have to be green in nature. So what it means is that the youths and the teeming population will have to begin to develop skills around green businesses, green initiatives, green innovation that will meet up the target.
Understanding the severity of the situation, Kano State Government has established a climate agency with pollution control bill before the State Assembly, apart from restoration of tree planting campaign aimed at neutralizing the carbon emissions.
People are cutting trees illegally, felling them. If you go to farmland, you will see people are not maintaining trees in their farm. So government is going to make it a law that anybody who fell one should plant 10, if possible with a fine.
The state has also formed a committee of experts saddled with responsibility of identifying the level of pollution in Kano.
All right, let's go over to Kaduna and put this to Dr. Saleh Ibrahim. Well, earlier on you talked about what you advising young people to do with, for instance, the eucalyptus tree and all that. And it reminds me of can I call it an annual ritual this time around? When just about the only enlightenment campaigns we hear about protecting the environment has to do with tree planting. We go, we celebrate, we do the symbolic planting, and the next year we don't even find out what has happened to those symbolic trees we planted, and the ritual is performed the next year, and it goes on and on. How beneficial have these annual rituals been to stemming one, desert encroachment, desertification, and even providing economic trees?
Thank you very much. I think at the beginning it was a success. It was a success story because it actually succeeded. If you come to Kaduna, in the whole of Nigeria, Kaduna housed the highest number of standing eucalyptus as a result of that tree planting campaign that used to take place around 1980s and up to the early 1990s, where the trees are truly planted and the government Ministry of Forestry and Agriculture are really taking care of the trees and are being protected because the forest brigade are there to protect the trees from either failing or from allowing any destruction to actually take place in the area. But after that, it became a political jamboree where trees will be planted, money will be expended, and accountability is not taken into cognizance. Corruption by excellence became synchronous to tree planting campaign, which I personally rejected. And that is the more reason why when the UNDP JF came on board, I gave the advice. I agree that we're going to have this tree planting, but the trees must be handed over to the community. Each youth and women must have this number of trees to be planted. They should take care of those trees, and they should be visited. And any money coming from UNDP, such people should be given stipends so that they can be able to take care of the trees and be able to make the trees to grow. Unless we have succeeded in changing the mindset that the usual jamboree, even though it's still taking place, is not the ultimate and it's not the best way. If the community did not take possession of the forest, no matter how much trees you planted, they will still not, they will not actually be seen to be practically available for the purpose for which you put them. And this new, policy where you plant the trees and then you hand it over to the community, and the community after 3-4 years, they have the right to cut them down and sell and see how they can get something out of it, is one thing that will make the community to agree to plant the trees within the farm, outside or at the edge of the farms, and we can be able to have the number of trees count that we needed standing. That means that the canopy of trees that we need to be able to help us in mitigating the climate change and serve as carbon traps or carbon sequesters would definitely be available. We did not only say eucalyptus should be planted, but we also say that those trees that are fast, disappearing should also be planted. We added also, you can also plant the eucalyptus plus mango trees so that within the period, the waiting period of 3 years or 4 years before you start harvesting, the mango tree will have started fruiting and you can sell the fruit to live so that the land will not be, in the hand that cannot actually yield anything. These are the...
Okay, Dr. Ibrahim, we'll return to you in a moment. At this point in time, we'll take a short break. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. When we return for the next segment, the phone lines will be open, and that means you can get to be part of the discussion. Of course, we'll remind you of the conditions at that time. Stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
I am more than just an idea. I am alive, connected. I am part of an ecosystem, creating connections within an interactive and sustainable city. I am intentional about excellence, integrity, and efficiency. I am invested in building a sustainable future. I am committed to strategic partnerships and collaborations. I can be tough, and I can be tender. I take pride in delivering high standards. While there may be others, I am in a league of my own. I am more than just an idea. I am Bilal. Who are you?
Nigerian youths are about the greatest asset the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth Entrepreneurship Support Years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youths, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. This segment, you can get to be part of the discussion. Let's remind you that the numbers will be on your screen. You take advantage of those numbers. When you do call in and your call gets through, when it is passed to the studio, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the echo or the hurlback. And we'd like to encourage you that once you are through, go straight to the point. Ask your question or make a comment. Don't waste time on greetings. Sometimes the connections can be erratic. So it's better to just go straight to the point, ask your question or make a comment. And that way, we can get more people on the platform to air their views. So thanks for staying with us on NTA Tuesday Live. It's all about climate and climate change and the things that Nigeria can do to be part of the global community to address what one of our guests here tonight described as a climate crisis. Let's go over to Scotland. And again, Dr. Bassi, if you're there, the conference in Glasgow, it's not just about what can be done. It perhaps provides an opportunity to think about commitments by the big countries. I think at a point in time, was it in 2016 or so, there was a commitment of some $500 billion or so, if I'm not mistaken, to countries like African countries who may not have that infrastructure at the time to help them towards getting straight, getting to the recommendations. But again, I still keep talking about the bigger emitters in the world. Some of them also thwart the recommendations and the agreements. Take, for instance, the ongoing conference, Australia. Speaking about cleaner energies, Australia has refused to do anything to cut out its use of coal, saying that that brings in revenue. Now, shouldn't these countries be walking the talk?
Right. I think for some years now, unfortunately, the world has shifted away from making definite expectations and demands from the big polluting nations. Previously, under the Kyoto Protocol, there were binding emission reductions that were expected from the big-time industrialized nations, but now from the Paris Agreement, it's all voluntary emissions, nationally determined contributions. So every country determines what they're going to do, what is convenient for them to do, and what is affordable for them to do. Australia has always been a bad player in terms of climate change. Australia, the United States, Japan, and previous, we used to have others also playing the bad guys. And so it's not surprising at all that the government of Australia is not stepping forward to show leadership in terms of climate action. And as I said, some years back in the Paris Agreement, it was agreed that from 2020, the industrialized nation would provide $100 billion to less endowed nations every year towards their mitigation needs. But now I think that deadline has been shifted to 2025, again, maybe because they think that is far away, just around the corner. We do know that $100 billion is not sufficient at all to meet the needs of countries who are already suffering the impacts of global warming. In 2019, a country like Mozambique suffered from just one cyclone, a loss of over $1 billion, one nation, one cyclone. Over 1,000 lives were lost in one cyclone early 2019. And they had a similar cyclone earlier this year, but with less damage. But so the amount was just a token. It wasn't as if it was calculated based on anything. Hurricanes in the United States wreak havoc of more than $100 billion in 1 year. And so they do know that the $100 billion is just a token, but instead of providing even that small amount of money, they are busy trying to make it appear like come true to these nations as loans, as grants, and not anything additional. They're just double counting and backward counting and just doing whatever they can to avoid assisting nations, whereas they are the cause, the drivers of the problem. This is why this Conference of Parties negotiation is very, very, always very disappointing to some of us. Civil society groups spend more time discussing on the outside spaces. And if you remember, in 2019, after the failure of Copenhagen at COP15, the world met in Bolivia. Within 2 days, peoples of various nations were able to draw up very clear path of action that could be taken to tackle global warming. The global north, the industrialized nation, spend up to $2 trillion every year in warfare, reducing the capacity of nations to withstand the impacts of global warming, causing destruction, causing all kinds of problems. At the same time, they cannot find $100 billion to support poor and vulnerable nations to survive a problem they themselves have created. So it's a very unequal world. And we have to look them in the face and tell them this, that they can't, this is a global problem, not a national problem. It's not about how powerful you are. When the storms come like we saw this year in Europe, the fires in America, the problems in Australia, no country is really ready to withstand extreme weather events. So we have to find a way to come together and really take action in a way that is realizes that the peace problem, we are all on this planet together. We're in the same boat, and we have to all do our own fair share.
All right. Okay, thank you. The lines are open, and calls are beginning to come in at this point. Well, we had just our first caller. We'll keep trying and see if we can get one or two opinions from those who call in to be part of this discussion. So let me come to Dr. Osonwa. Earlier on, you said from ambition. Okay, we have Isiaku from Kebbi, who's calling in. We'll ask Dr. Osonwa to hold on. Isiaku from Kebbi, go right ahead. Hello, Isiaku, are you still on the line?
Hello, good evening.
Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, thank you for this very important program. My question to the discussion is, I imagine how the developed countries will want to reduce the carbon emission from their factories and big companies, while everybody is talking about industrialization. I don't imagine the bigger countries, like the developed countries, the European countries, the Americans, and what have you. I don't know how they will reduce the carbon emissions from their companies and their factories with the current rate of technology moving forward with industrialization. All these countries that develop is because of the heavy machineries or heavy companies and factories that they normally use to produce a lot of things for their citizens. I don't know how this could be possible.
Okay.
And they are the ones that are claiming to reduce the carbon emissions. Yes, taxing way of the taxing way of pulling and probably reducing the carbon emissions is very important because of the global warming. But I don't think the developed countries in this world of
Fine. Well, I think from the line was quite noisy, but I think I can make out from what you were saying. He doesn't really see how these industrialized countries will cut back what's coming out from their factories when they are so far ahead. Well, if you look at that, and then from our own end, what I'm saying is we are not even there yet. We don't even have those factories yet. So the plan is to make sure that when we industrialize, we do not exactly what they're doing now. Would you like to respond to that?
Yes, there are a number of ways you can actually reduce your emissions. And I think President Biden is showing leadership. He just submitted a bill that was passed, over 550 billion devoted to climate action. And how do you really reduce emissions? There are a number of ways. One is you can subsidize, you can incentivize the transition to clean energy. Right now, a lot of money is going to fossil fuel subsidies that should be channeled to renewable energy. That's one way you do it. You create incentives. For instance, if you want to buy a vehicle, an electric vehicle in the US, you can get a rebate. You can get tax credits. You can get some kind of incentive to transition from the regular one.
From the recently signed PIA,
yes,
are there provisions there which, because now you talked about taking away the subsidy to fossil fuels
to renewable
energy. Do you see the PIA as moving in that direction?
Well, I would say that we still have a long way to go. I don't think the PIA was written with climate change in mind. It was written more as a resource management tool.
Yes, I'm not saying it's written for climate change, but I'm just saying the provisions of the PIA. How will that affect? Yes, I don't think particularly the question of subsidies from subsidies to fossil fuels to renewable energy.
I didn't see that in the PIA. But let me say this: there are a number of specific things Nigeria can do. I was talking about bridging our ambition with the action that we need to take.
Okay.
And there are specific ways we can do that. You look at the 4 big things contributing to climate change, and I would posit that Nigeria is the largest contributor to climate change in Africa for 4 reasons. One is gas flaring, we've talked about. We are putting out a tremendous amount of greenhouse gases by flaring the amount of gas that we're doing. Second one is our vehicle emission. We're not doing much to check emission coming from our vehicles. 20 million vehicles on the road, some of them huge trailers and trucks with diesel polluting the environment. Most countries have an emission testing and limiting infrastructure. You don't drive it if it exceeds a certain limit. We don't have that. Then, more importantly, the amount of power that we're generating and distributing is not enough. where on most days it's only about 6,000 megawatts, when we need about 200,000 megawatts. So what that is doing is it's forcing people to use generators. 60 million generators, some of them petrol, some diesel, polluting the environment. That is a huge contribution to climate change in Nigeria. So we need to harness the gas and provide electricity. Then the other thing we need to talk about, deforestation. Nigeria has already lost over 50% of its forest cover since independence, and is growing. We have a net loss of about 300 hectares for every 1,000 hectares that we have. That's from Ministry of Environment. We have a net loss. Now, we have the Great Green Wall Project, fantastic project. They just got $19 billion to fund that project from this Glasgow conference. But the problem is, the Great Green Wall, if you measure the land mass that it covers in Nigeria, it's only 2% of Nigerian land mass. You need a massive reforestation project in Nigeria. And we have our youth corps members, over 1 million of them each year. I think they should be planting trees as a condition of service. We can have 100 million trees per year just from youth corps people. The people getting stipend from government, they should be deployed to plant trees so that we can cover the northern part of the country, cover some of the shorelines to create embankment. That's what we need to do.
Okay, let's go back to the phone lines. Ahmed from Abuja calling in. Hello. Hello, Ahmed. No. Ahmed, we advised at the start of this program that when you get through, you turn down the volume. I could hear the echo, the hurlback from your TV set. So for those who will be calling in, let's remind you, turn down the volume of your TV set when you get through to the studio. That's the only way to avoid this hurlback or the echo. A lot of people find it difficult to do that, and I always suggest that when you call, you can actually just turn down or move away from the TV set, and that way you avoid that hurlback. So keep those calls coming, and please observe those little details, and we'll get clear calls coming through. So let's now go over to Professor Ladipo once more and say, yes, you've heard Dr. Somwa here speak of ways Nigeria can move from ambition to action, bridge the ambition and action gap. So we begin to see changes here. Now, one issue which we would always like to raise here is how quickly can we, when you talk about mitigating, whatever damage has been done, it takes time. Now, if you begin to plan, say what time span are we looking at here that we can say Nigeria can space out its move towards joining the rest of the world with cleaner energies? Okay, well, we'll try and reconnect with him. Okay, in the meantime, let's quickly go to our Kaduna Center. Dr. Saleh Ibrahim. Yes, you talked about why you do not want this tree planting campaign to go the same way it's been going in the past. And yes, I do recall that for most parts of northern Nigeria, then you had what was called Gandundaji. You don't see those anymore, those forest reserves. How can you now use the strategies you're trying to evolve to ensure employment opportunities across board? Now, you spoke about the experiment with the eucalyptus trees and talked about mango. It can also bring in some revenue. Now, beyond those, what are the other areas we can adopt? And you started talking about using dung to generate energy.
Thank you very much. That's about the tree planting and money generation. I could remember one of my friends tried that in Kano, and he got half a hectare and planted eucalyptus for 3 years. And within the first 3 years, immediately he harvested half of what he actually planted. He was able to get about 300,000. That shows to you that that is paying. And the following year, or 2 years later, he got more than twice what he got, and the other parts that he did not touch now actually were standing and were used as scaffolds for building. That's another option. And his mangoes are also there. They've started fruiting. That's another way. You can generate a lot of money. You can generate, and the waiting time is not much. The first year you planted, you still farm in the same land. The second year, you can still farm in the same land. The third year, you can still farm in the same land. That means that the land is not going to be barren. You can still farm and get what you want to farm. After 3 years, you can sell. So you need not to farm because the trees are already tall enough to be able to give you the money you needed. And on the side of the farm, you can be able to still do your normal cropping. That's for that one. On the animal dung, it's very simple. It is a tricyclical kind of benefit where you have the dung and the urine from the herds of cattle, and then you channel them into the digester, and you get your methane gas, and from the methane gas, you powered your generator, methane generator, and you have your light. And then the digester will now remove the balance of the phosphate from the fertilizer and part of the urea and ammonia from the dung and the urine of the cow. And you can just take them as fertilizer to your farm, and you can still farm with such a residue that after removing the methane, and you can still farm and have the money that you have. In fact, what is very interesting, you may not be even interested in the cow itself, to talk of even selling the meat, if the meat is not of interest to you. Because what you are going to generate from the 3 megawatts that you can be able to have, or 1 megawatt that you can be able to generate, is more than 3 or 5 times the amount of the cow itself. So why I'm saying solar may not necessarily be down here in the north, the option is because we have more number of herds of cow down here. Though we also have solar, but be rest assured 2 things or 3 things happen. The first thing, you are not the manufacturer of the solar panels. How certain are you? The solar panel is not republished. The best solar panel producers is China. Even in Germany, in America, they also get the supply from China. How certain are you? The bigger nations who are struggling to also have these panels are also buying. And you're also buying. How certain are you you're going to have? How certain are you the battery is also original? How certain are you your return to capital after investment in solar will come back after 5 years? But I assured you, return to capital and ability to even have the trade that you're used to, the cow that every Nigerian know how to take care of, is easier than tapping solar. Yes, solar is in abundance, especially in the north and all parts of Nigeria. But the management process is that, yes, we can generate employment in this alternative. We can generate employment for youth on also the methane concept. But I am saying in sustainable,
Okay. All right, that's part of it. Let's quickly go back to the phones. We have a call coming through now. Ololade, who's calling in from Kwara. Ololade, go ahead.
Massive deforestation that is going on every year.
Hello, Ololade.
For forestation that people should continue to plant trees. Like, for instance,
Well, I don't think Ololade is still on the line.
the NYCs will be of advantage. And also, the Ministry of Environment will also engage the service of partial workers so that we'll be able to plant more trees. So some people are doing for commercial purpose, either for charcoal or for using as wood for houses. So I'm going to advise that there should be a massive and aggressive program towards it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, Ololade, thanks for calling in. I'm not quite sure I got the greater part of your contribution there. For me, the sound level was quite low, and I'm not sure Dr. Soma here also had much of that.
No, I think I was talking about trees and charcoal and all that.
Right.
It goes. It's all about deforestation.
Right.
We need to do a lot to reforest.
Yes, but but here now lies the challenge. Quite a lot of people on the lower rungs of society do not have access to the kinds of energy that we are recommending here. And so there is a heavy reliance on wood for fuel.
Yes.
And I am looking at a deliberate step towards bringing the people out, because first you have to deal with the attitudes, then you have to make these alternatives which you recommend affordable. Now, already people, families are just aching and living and struggling to keep their head above water. Yeah. And so how is this going to work out? You are the experts in this.
Well, there are two things we need to do. The first one I highlighted before. Government needs to harness the gas that we're burning and we're wasting to solve some of these problems. If we harness the gas, government, that's an area where government can subsidize. As I was saying, if you want to transition to clean energy, you have to invest in the transitioning process. And the good thing about all of this is, if you do it right, you can attract foreign funding, not just donor funds. There's something we call the carbon market now, carbon finance, carbon credit. If you structure your project very well and you can quantify the carbon emission that you will save, in this case, from burning wood. The challenge we have with deforestation is three-pronged. The first one is, when you cut down the tree, you lose, in some cases we burn the forest, now you're releasing carbon that was trapped. The second thing is you lose your ability to sequester more carbon. Then the other one is you degrade the land, and in some cases erosion comes in. So it's a big problem. What we need to do, government needs to become very proactive in commercializing the gas that we're burning to help Nigerians. That's one. The second thing is, when we talk about deforestation, we're not really talking about cutting down trees. It is only deforestation when you cut down the tree without replanting, you see. So there must be a net gain. If you're cutting down your trees and you're replanting more, for each tree you plant 2, then we wouldn't have deforestation. We'll have a net gain. So that is the problem we have in Nigeria. People are cutting down these trees, making charcoal, using it for domestic use, but nobody is replanting. And that's where government needs to step in. We can plant so many trees if there is political will to do so. We have what it takes. The ground is fertile. We have rainy season in most parts of Nigeria. We can plant trees. We can use our youth strength to solve a problem that is a menace. And if we do it right, we can attract billions of dollars for planting trees, because that can be quantified, the carbon emission that we will reduce.
All right, Dr. Bassi, let me come to you in Scotland there. This is one question many people here have asked, and perhaps when our guests look at it from different angles, we could really see a solution here. Nigeria, we say, is in a hurry to industrialize, to improve on virtually all aspects of the country. Now, how do you balance the desire to quickly industrialize and at the same time reduce the carbon emissions and reduce your carbon footprints? How do you balance that? Because you need to get all the industries working and working quickly too, so you can build the economy, which needs a lot of firming up, and you also need to watch out for the climate. How do you balance this?
The major approach here is for the nation to decide or agree on the fact that the purpose of governance and of change in any society is to promote the well-being of citizens of the nation. And so you don't industrialize just for the sake of industrialization. You don't set up factories without checking if you really need them. So what we need, what are Nigerians best equipped to do? What are Nigerians best equipped to do? What is our skill set? What are the things that we need? I know we need a lot of things in the nation. A lot of things have gone in the wrong direction. There are a lot of gaps to be met, but we really need to look at what we have and see how we can use what we have to achieve the best result. One of the challenges we have in this nation is the fact that we've abandoned the factories we had were abandoned. Why were they abandoned? If we don't look at why they were abandoned, we're going to fall back into the same trap. Many of them were abandoned because everyone decided to focus on crude oil as a major income earner, and because also some international multilateral financial institutions told us that government cannot be in business. We've got that notion that government cannot be in business, that only private sector can be in business, and so we let everything that government was doing to die. We also had the notion that we cannot subsidize even the private sector, so we left our textiles to die. And the imported textile took over the textile industry business in this country. And so we really need to, we're not just going to say, okay, we're now time to industrialize, but we have to look at what do we need to invest in? How should we invest in it? And how can we operate in harmony with nature? One area that employs the majority of Nigerians is farming. And we used to have extension services, extension officers all over the country. Now there are just a handful of them still left in service. Now extension officers are essential to help our farmers grow food in a way that is productive in ways that is in harmony with nature, in ways that don't require artificial fertilizers, in ways that would help to maintain the health of the soil. A healthy soil is a good carbon sink. It helps when you farm in a way that is not destructive, you help to cool the planet. And so if Nigerians truly go back to productive farming, supporting our family farming, family farmers, supporting the small-scale farmers, promoting local varieties that are adapted to our conditions, we're going to find that the production will be so much surplus that industries will be attracted to come back into being. Because if you set up a factory and the raw materials are not there, the factories will neither be here nor there. They're going to fold up again. So there are a lot of factors: political, economic, international relations, and looking at what we have at hand and what we can do.
Okay. Briefly, I saw Professor Ladipo, so that means he's back with us. And it's the same question I'll just put to you in a different way and say, look, Prof, we need housing. We talk a lot about the housing deficit. So many people do not have shelter. We need that. We need to develop roads, communication links, airports. These are the things we see as pointing to a modern society. Roads, housing, airports, quick transportation, and all these things mean one thing. With housing, massive land clearing, with the development of cities, concrete everywhere, developing of roads, the same thing. And of course, when you talk about transportation, more airports would definitely mean more planes flying in and out. How do you go about this and not, fall into the trap of damaging the environment?
Thank you very much. It's not going to be an easy task. It's not going to be very easy. Of course, it's a very complex thing to do. But I want to start with the following. The issue of climate change is not asking us not to develop, other that we must just shut down everything and make sure we got zero emissions. No. Even the nationally determined contribution, we all agree that a nation like Nigeria needs massive development and has to do this in a way and manner that it may result in some increased emission for a very short period of time. But as soon as we're able to put our feet on the ground properly, we should aim at rapidly reducing the emission so that as far as the vision for Nigeria is concerned, we are thinking about halving our emission by 2050 and moving towards net zero emission by 2060 to 2070. What this one means is that what the
Oh dear, we lost that out.
It's not enough to have the political. It's not enough to have the political commitment. Will, but we must have the political commitment. A lot of things we are doing, we talk about it to show that we are interested, but the will to do it is not being done very well. For instance, if we can try as much as possible, we are not asking that solar energy will industrialize Nigeria massively, but if we can use solar energy massively to make lighting available so that every house can prepare their appliances and everything, then the little we are generating from the hydropower can be used to develop our industrial sector massively. So that if we have to do a lot of energy mix, but this requires a lot of massive political will. A lot of money we spend on necessary other things can be used to subsidize some of these things in the renewable sector, particularly in the solar sector, that a lot of people in the rural areas can have lighting, remove them from the grid, use the available 4,000 to 6,000 megawatts we are generating for massive industrial development that will not pollute the environment and at the same time will make us to reach where we are. But this requires a lot of rethinking. My own advice is that the dialogue that you did tonight is extremely important, but we need a sort of national approach in ensuring that the national agenda for 2050 that is being developed for this country takes cognizance of the need to address the challenges of this climate crisis and the need for Nigeria to be part of the global effort to address the challenge, which means our industrial strategy, our water resources management strategy, our agricultural strategy, our transportation strategy within this 2050 agenda should be well done enough to put the issues of climate change into proper perspectives. So when we start to implement the agenda, we will not be running helter-skelter that, it must be only fossil fuel. It has to be a mix of approach, but it has to be a national dialogue, properly delineated out completely, that we have a strategy. How do we move from 2022 to 2060 or 2050 in a way and manner that will be developing, but developing in a sustainable manner that will not make us, not only because the world is asking us to do it, but because if we do not do it and we continue to contribute to some of this, particularly in the area of deforestation, we will continue to lose a lot more in the long run than taking it the bull by the horn and gradually see how we can match our decisions and discussions with massive activities, with massive actions that are properly supported both internally and externally. But if we do it very well, a lot of resources are available. I want to end by saying that it's not everything that is in climate change that is negative. A lot of countries are taking advantage of this global discourse to invest and develop technologies that are making them to develop. The countries that are not even participating, like Australia and Japan and the USA, they are developing technologies that they are in the interest of this climate change. Let me give my gentleman from Dr. Salisu from Kaduna. Solar energy is perhaps the best we have. I'm talking from a personal experience. In my house today, I have 5 kVA and I've invested about 2 million. And today, sometimes I laugh at my people. My people say, if I want to be making money from phone generation, charging, I'll be a rich man, because in my area, sometimes there'll be no light for 3 or 4 days, and I will not know because of my solar power. And people will rush into my house. I want to charge my phone. So it's an investment of this 2 million. I've gained it within 1 year, because I was spending about 70,000 naira for diesel before a month. Today, I don't spend up to 10,000 naira a month on diesel anymore. So it is really, really economical, but it has to be done very well. And this is where I want government. If every politician can afford and say, in my constituency, I'm going to provide solar power to a minimum of 1,000 members of my community from my constituency allowance, I think we'll move forward. We'll be able to do it very well. So I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right, Prof. On a lighter mood, I think we'll be talking after this program, so you can avail us of that solar power. Right. Yeah, but seriously speaking, we do have one more report, and this one is from Port Harcourt, and it's by Robinson Derataide.
The conference of the party, COP26, marks a multilateral commitment by world leaders aimed at slashing greenhouse gas emissions by 78% by 2035 and net zero by 2050. This is expected to accelerate clean atmosphere and transition to zero global economy. Yearly increase in sea level, degradation of the ecosystem, and desertification threat of the Lake Chad in the north are some of the consequences of climate change in Nigeria.
A place like the Orashi region of Rivers State, we have seen sea level rises that have continued to take place since 2012, where the sea rises up to about 1 or 2 meters, inundating houses, destroying farmlands, destroying people's livelihood, destroying people. A microcosm of the microcosm. They are a very tiny dot in Rivers State and even a tinier dot in the entire Niger Delta landscape. The whole area is in need of cleanup.
Experts are of the view that Nigeria, being a leading gas flaring country, needs to domesticate COP26 target by reviewing the PIB provisions to address environmental damages in the country. They urge the government to take serious the transition of the country's energy from fossil fuel to renewable energy, but frown at the Western world for over-pushing the policy, since Africa contributes less than 1% to greenhouse gas emission.
It has to be able to utilize the resources that are available to it right now, which includes our gas and our oil, to build the capacity locally to drive the transition process, to drive reduction in carbon. And the only way it can do that is with the support of the international community. Nigeria does not have the funds to do this right now.
The health implications of gas flaring and other effects on the environment make it imperative for the people to end the operation of artisanal refineries in the Niger Delta region.
All right, let's go over to Kaduna Network Center now. And we have heard what governments, what the state can do to reduce the impact on, on the environment and reduce the dangers from climate change. I want to bring it down now to the individual level. Dr. Saleh Ibrahim, how should citizens conduct their activities at individual levels? The idea of, well, the government has to do this, the government does this. So what is the individual the citizen's own contribution to reducing carbon footprints?
Thank you very much. We have to go green. We must develop Go Green policy where every citizen must accept the Go Green policy. Go Green policy is a policy where you use less contaminant-related products, and you just have to accept it because you are part of it. Quite a number of us are using a lot of things, and we allow it to go into the drain, and we never know the consequences of such things. We use our normal domestic detergent, and this detergent carry along with them a lot of chemicals that could be volatile to the climate. In addition to those detergents thrown into the drainages, we also have our bad attitude of going to urinate everywhere, and this urine combined with the detergent and other chemicals within the drain also develop an unsubstantiated formulation of a chemical you can never define. and they end up being played into the atmosphere by the temperature of the day or the night or whatever, and that could be. So changing our attitude is one thing. The second one is you ask a question. Concreting our house, concreting our roads, concreting everything in our houses when all the countries are going green is actually not the best. Everyone is aware. When the sun ray hit the head of your house, it backscatter and then get back to your room again, and you live with it in the night. And then that means that whatever is there also go back to the space. And that is also additional. We need to change our ways of building so that you have spaces that can be able to be green and bare, and then you have to just adhere to the new policy in Kaduna State, for instance. If you're building your house, you must not build the whole land. You must build just 60%, and the balance of the 40% will be for green areas, for your parking areas, and minimum of trees must be planted, 3 of them in your new house. That is the policy. By doing that, you are having carbon sequesters in your house, and then that will help to trap what you are actually emitting from your cars and other domestic generators that you are having. Thirdly, we really need to understand that it is not only, just like my colleague there said, it's not everything that you expect the government to do. You have to desilt all your drainages in frontage of your house, in your business areas. While the government is building these drainages, it is not the duty of the government to desilt them. If somebody did not, then from the green policy, then green tax should be on you. You pay, no matter how small it is. A proverb or an adage says that with droplet of rainfall, an ocean get filled up. So by the time you are collecting those monies, and those monies are going for green, and certain project can be financed by such monies. Some countries have used that. Kenya, for instance, East Africa generally have used green or go green policy, and they were able, on certain day, particularly Thursdays, if you go into the market and you need 2 plastic, 5 plastic, you can only get 1. If you need additional plastic, you need to pay for the second one so that you will not distress the environment. This is the way to go. And then we also need to know that our housing policy should encompass green agriculture. Where you're supposed to be given 100 by 50, you should be given 200 by 200, and you will be told that only 50 by 50 will be the size of your house. The balance, you need to do irrigation inside so that you feed the nation. At the same time, you make the environment green with trees around in your house.
Okay, so at this point, we'll go to Dr. Bassi once more. Dr. Bassi, as we wind down this discussion, you see we've gone to the individual level. What can citizens do on their own to help achieve this goal?
Very much, but first let me respond to the policy in Kaduna State that the citizens have to desilt drainages that pass by their homes or offices. I think that may not be a very good policy, because if you have industrial drainages, very deep drainage passing in front of their home or office, maybe it would be dangerous for an individual to step into those drainages to try to clean them. So government must have a duty to clean certain kind of drainage. If they are just small gutters, that's fine. But if there are real drainages that are deep and dangerous, and people without any expertise shouldn't go anywhere near them. In fact, they should be covered so that people don't drop things into them anyhow. I thought I should just respond to that. Maybe there are other explanations that the commissioner could not really lay before us at this time. Citizens have a duty. They have duties. Well, there are many things we can do as individuals, already alluded to. We should engage if you want to buy things that are durable. For example, if you shop frequently, why don't you have a bag that you can be using all the time you go to the market or going to shop, rather than depending on single-use plastics? Nigerians are so much addicted to having plastic bags. Somebody buys a loaf of bread that's already inside a plastic, they still want another plastic bag. You buy banana, you want plastic bag. Everything you want plastic bags.
One of the most popular things in this country is sachets of water. What is popularly referred to as pure water, sachets of water everywhere. These are things that, so all these things put together.
That's a big problem. That's a big problem. It's a failure of the system where we now have to buy water to drink rather than having water in a tap that is supplied from the public sources. But again, Nigerians have to learn not to dump those sachets. People just throw things out of cars, out of their homes on the street, as if once you drop anything in the public, then you dispose of it. But we need to take care of that, and then we need to keep these things and dispose of them properly, and have designated places where we can safely dispose of them without having to block the drainages and then compound the problems of flooding. Then we should, other things we can do include just reducing waste to the minimum. Use things you can reuse them, and the things that you can recycle them. Recycling can bring about very alternative usage for things that were meant for particular certain kind of uses before. And then, of course, if the public transportation system, if the railway system works, use the railway rather than driving your private car. These are things we can just change the way we operate, the way we do things, and then we contribute towards solving this global problem.
All right. Thank you so very much, Dr. Nimo Bassi of Health of Mother Earth Foundation, who joined us from Scotland via Zoom. We'd like to appreciate you and thank you very much for being part of this discussion. Thank you, Dr. Bassi. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me just quickly at this point also go to Professor Emmanuel Ladipo and say thank you very much for being part of this. Well, I know, Prof, you're probably going to be getting a few calls after this. People want to talk to you about this energy business, which you just started here. But thank you so much for being part of our discussion tonight. We'd like to appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's nice.
Right. And Dr. Yahya Saleh Ibrahim, Director, Center for Energy and Environmental Strategy Research, Kaduna State University. We also say thank you very much for being part of our discussion tonight. We thank you, and we hope to see you again one of these days as we talk about energy and renewable energy. Thank you.
Thank you for having me, Cyril. Thank you all. Thank you, my colleagues. Thank you for having me, Cyril. Thank you all.
All right. And Dr. John Osonwa, expert analyst on climate change, environment, and renewable energy, we thank you too. Just one quick one before you just go. There's such a thing they call vegans, is there? They say it's a personal thing you can use to reduce your carbon footprints, and it means having nothing to do with
protein.
With exactly.
Animal protein.
Animal protein.
Yes. That means you cut out meat, eggs,
okay,
cheese,
right,
milk,
right,
all those things gone.
And someone asked,
just
what will you be eating?
Everything has fruits, vegetables.
All right, thank you.
Some people are actually adopting that, and it's helping them a lot.
Right.
I'm not quite there yet. But
okay. So we'd like to thank you for being on this program. Thank you so very much.
It's a pleasure.
And we hope you come again.
I always do. Thank you.
Right. And thank you too for being part of our discussion. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.
When there's a child out there that's not getting the same that your own child is getting, the difference will tell, and there will come a time in the society where that child is going to take his pound of flesh.
Where you can actually, everything from watching a program with the child, you can start up the conversation from something on the TV and say, oh, you know.
For me, it's like, hurry up with this business. And the other one said, Auntie, it's not about me, it's about the guys, they're not ready to marry.
Yes. If she wants to ask something, no, I know my mother very well. In fact, the most interesting one is when I put up pictures on WhatsApp, you know, Snapchat filters and all that, she will call me, remove that picture. There was a day I got tired of all that and I said,
This week on Executive Discourse.
So why am I here? I'm not here to make money. I'm not here to make money. I'm here to build people up for them to be themselves and create a better future. I will never lose hope in Nigeria, despite the challenges of nation building.
There is a lot of fake news and report circulating, especially on social media, on the coronavirus. Do not believe or partake in the spread of these fake reports. If it is not on the official website or news from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, disregard such report. Only together can we beat this virus. Only together can we overcome this pandemic. Follow the instructions and guidelines provided to combat this virus. Most importantly, stay at home. Self-isolate, regardless of your status. The virus doesn't move unless we move. Let us work together to better Nigeria. Together, we can do this. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
This is the network service of the NTA.